Hey everybody, welcome to our Lunch and Learn. My name is Rudy, I'm Petzl, and big thanks to Tree Stuff for having this Lunch and Learn and hosting. Excited to be here. We're going to talk about fall protection and bucket truck safety. Today's January 23rd, 2023. I know we are live right now, but big kudos to Tree Stuff. I think this is my third Lunch and Learn that I've done. They're always fun, good educational, kind of short, bite-sized information on a specific topic. So I'll obviously be talking about Petzl products here, but I will start by doing a general overview of why you need fall protection in a bucket truck. And we'll look at some standards, some laws behind that, and then we'll get into the fun stuff, which is the product that everybody knows and loves to keep you safe there in the bucket truck. So I think we will start to get going. I've been told to linger for a moment to let some people hop in here. Oh, I am Rudy. That's a great slide into my introduction slide. So I'm Rudy Rutemiller. I am an arborist, so I do maintain my ISA certification. It's really important to me. I am an office employee these days, but I still love to get out there, climb, do some side jobs, still maintain my track certification. I worked in the field with Bartlett Tree Experts for a few years, but I've been with Petzl now for 5 years. So I love being kind of Petzl's in-house arborist and helping anybody out with anything arborist related. My email there on the slide, as you can see, it's just rrutemiller@petzl.com. You're more than happy to reach out to me if you have any questions about what's in this PowerPoint, want to dig a little bit deeper into some standards or the product. I'm more than happy to help. Love talking with end users and really anybody about Petzl in the tree care industry. So you're more than welcome to message me. I know the Tree Stuff folks are really good with answering technical questions as well. So you can certainly go to them as well when you're shopping on Tree Stuff. So I am Petzl's National Sales Manager for the professional division of the company. And outside of work, I'm a runner. Running has been in the back of my mind now because we're having a killer winter in Salt Lake City, Utah, where I'm located. We're at almost double normal snow level amount. So I've been skiing a ton, getting in the backcountry. And yeah, also a dog dad. Hopefully you don't hear her. She is in my office right now, but I think she's sleeping. So hopefully we will let sleeping dogs lie and get into the meat of what we're going to talk about today. So like I said, we're going to talk about fall protection and bucket truck safety. So why is this, why am I doing this? Why do we need fall protection? Because it's law. You have to have fall protection or fall restraint when you are working in a bucket truck. And that's defined by OSHA. So we'll get into that a little bit. We'll also see what the ANSI standards have to say. We'll take a brief look at two different ANSI standards and how those are different from OSHA. Kind of nuanced, a little bit dry there, but really good information for everybody to know who's tuning in, whether you are actually operating the bucket truck or if you're an owner of a company, you have to know these laws and standards as well. We'll talk about the fall protection ABCs, as they like to call it. That's referenced in OSHA. So we'll talk about what those letters stand for. And then at the end, to wrap it up, we'll talk about how Petzl falls into the requirements and what Petzl has to offer to keep everybody safe and comfortable up there while you're working in a bucket truck. So this is my warning slide. If you've attended one of these before, you know you have seen this slide before. I got to say this is an awareness level of what we're talking about here. So me talking about OSHA or ANSI, it's just surface level stuff. It's just to introduce the topic. It's just for your education. So take it at that. It's just awareness level. We're talking about being at height, and that's inherently dangerous, right? You're responsible for your own actions. You must read instructions for use when you're using a Petzl product or any product out there. Always read the manufacturer's instruction. Get proper training, be acquainted with its capabilities and limitations, and understand the risks when you are working at height. So with that out of the way, we're going to talk OSHA versus ANSI here. So OSHA is law. ANSI is not law. OSHA, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, that's a government, these are government standards, a government agency, versus ANSI, American National Standards Institute, that's a voluntary consensus standard. So OSHA law, ANSI voluntary, unless the OSHA law specifically states ANSI in the OSHA standard. And a good example of that is head protection. So the OSHA standard does say you have to have head protection in accordance to ANSI Z359, for instance. So in that case, the ANSI is law, but it doesn't apply for everything. It's only when OSHA specifically states that standard. So for OSHA, arborists fall under the general industry clause. The arborists, we don't have our own specific ANSI, OSHA standard yet. So we are operating under general industry, which is OSHA 1910. That has some general requirements. And then it does have specifics about working bucket trucks, which we'll get into in the next slide here. It's a lot of information. So go to OSHA.gov, read what it actually has to say. It's quite interesting, and it is law, like I said. On the ANSI side of things, we're all well and familiar with ANSI Z133. That is a best practice standard. So it's great to do everything that Z133 says, but it's actually not law. It's not an equipment standard, whereas ANSI Z359 is a fall protection standard that is an equipment standard, which means it has markings, testing requirements, all that good stuff. So takeaway here, OSHA is law, ANSI is voluntary, but you should follow it. So OSHA 1910.67. This is the law that says, that covers bucket trucks. So on the right-hand side of my screen here, you'll see exactly, I took the screenshot straight from the website here. So this is what it looks like. You can read what subpart it is, all that good stuff. But I'm going to go over just a few basics of what the standard says. Again, not comprehensive. It just says things that we know from training with our companies. We know from ANSI standards. There's some overlap in different things that are duplicated outside of the OSHA law. But what OSHA law does says, it says you got to test the controls prior to use. We know that. Fly the bucket before you leave the yard. Only trained people shall operate the bucket. So your new person that just joined the crew, they have to be actually trained and signed off to use that bucket. Only trained people shall operate it. You got to stand on the floor of the basket. So we're in fall protection, right? We're not in suspension off of when we're in a bucket truck, nor are we in work positioning. We're in basic fall arrest because our feet are on the floor of the bucket truck there. We're not going to sit or climb out of the edge or anything, or sit on the edge or anything like that. The most important thing for this presentation is this quote here that I'm just going to read, which is in this standard: a personal fall arrest or travel restraint system that meets the requirements in subpart I of this part shall be worn and attached to the boom or basket when working from an aerial lift. So that means you have to wear a fall protection system or be in travel restraint. And what is subpart I? That's a whole different part of OSHA. These standards often reference other parts of it. So we're going to go to subpart I here, which is the personal protective equipment subpart of OSHA. And some things that it says, it defines what the ABCs are, a fall protection. It says you have to have a 5,000-pound anchor that you're clipping into. So unlike trees, when we're climbing, right, we don't know what that anchor actually is. In the bucket truck, in our basket, we have an actual 5,000+ pound anchor that is manufactured from the aerial lift manufacturers there. You have to use auto locking connections when you're tying into the bucket truck. You got to inspect your personal fall arrest system or your fall restraint system. And an interesting tidbit and a little bit of math here is that if you do fall out of the bucket, your maximum arresting force must be 8 kilonewtons or less. That's 1,800 pounds. And 1,800 pounds is a lot of force. You are getting messed up if you're at 8 kilonewtons. Even 6 kilonewtons or 4 kilonewtons, you're having some internal, if not external injuries. You're probably going to the hospital. You're not having a good day there. But OSHA says that's law because you can't go above that. That's their standard there. So I encourage you to read these standards. It's actually pretty interesting. Get in there in the details there. Moving on over to ANSI. So the practice that most, if not all of us follow in the tree care industry, the Z133, does have a specific section in it talking about aerial devices, bucket trucks. It references anchors, also that 5,000-pound standard. It also says that you have to wear fall protection when you're in a bucket truck and it has to be used in accordance with the manufacturer specifications. So that's why it's important to read the technical notice that always comes with a piece of equipment. It also says that carabiners or snap hooks within that fall arrest system must have a 3,600 pound rated gate. And we'll talk about that as well. So that last point, that 5.2.7.2, is one of the few times in the Z133 that actual climbing equipment or fall arrest equipment has specifications around it. So that 3,600 pound gate is important. And we'll talk about that here as well. The current ANSI Z133 standards from 2017, we should have an update probably sometime this year, maybe next year. We'll see how they're on track, but there will be some updates to this. So this is as of today. Okay, ANSI Z359, that's what I alluded to in one of my intro slides. Z359 is an actual equipment standard, which means it has a lot of different tests and marking requirements. So if you have your body harness and you look at the tag and it says ANSI Z359, that harness has been manufactured and tested to specific tests, or say a carabiner, like in this instance here. So this is a drawing straight from the standard that has the test for this 3,600 pound gate. So they put like a rod inside the carabiner, and then it goes out with those arrows pointing, one on the spine, one on the inside of the gate, to test that 3,600 pound gate strength. It's just one of the tests. There are a ton of tests in the standard, but it's important to know what that means, right? If I'm a manufacturer, I say, oh, this is 3,600 pounds because it is tested to the ANSI Z359 standard. And the testing was done by a third party, such as Underwriter Laboratories, et cetera, et cetera. So talking about gate strengths, two different carabiners that hopefully most folks are familiar with. I know most everybody's familiar with the Petzl AMD. This is our classic. Use this with a ton of different stuff, with your zigzag, with your lanyard and your Xeon, all that good stuff. You can see the difference in the gate size of that versus the BMD. So the BMD has that large gate, and the BMD does have that 3,600 pound gate strength on both ways on the gate, versus the AMD, that smaller, lighter weight, easier to open carabiner, does not have that 3,600 pound gate strength on there. So this is important because you need to pick the right carabiner for your fall arrest system when you're working in the bucket. Other manufacturers have these 3,600 pound rated gates as well. But if you right now go inspect your equipment after this call, if you have an AMD that's connected into your bucket truck, you're technically not in compliance. So you might need to go tree stuff and grab yourself a BMD there. Okay, so the ABCs of fall protection, getting more into the equipment here. The OSHA 1910 standard says that you have to have an anchor, you have to have a body harness, and you have to have a connector. So the anchorage, the way they define an anchorage, this is straight from it. It's a secure point of attachment for equipment, such as lifelines, lanyards, or deceleration devices. So this is what you're actually clipping into in the bucket. I think most of us know what the anchor is on your bucket truck. That's rated for 5,000 pounds there. And that's where you clip in your whole fall arrest system. B, body harness, pretty basic stuff, right? Full body harness, class 3. You cannot use your Sequoia to clip into the bucket truck. You have to have a full body harness here. So we'll talk about some options for full body harness in the Petzl line. And then you have a C, connector. This one's can be a little tricky because when I think of connector, I think of a carabiner, I think of a snap hook. But a connector, in terms of the ABCs for fall protection, as OSHA sees it, it's a device to connect parts of the fall protection system together. So it can't be just a carabiner. It has to be such as this fall arrest lanyard here as well. So your lanyard's connecting your body harness, connecting to your anchor. Your connector, you are going to have carabiners or snap hooks on it to actually physically connect things together. But that's how OSHA defines it there as well. So if anybody's ever worked construction before, they always talk about the ABCs, the fall protection, your anchor, your body harness, and your connector. So some full body harnesses. Obviously, Petzl's not going to manufacture the anchor. That's all done by the bucket truck manufacturer. But when we get into the body harness and connectors, Petzl has options, right? So hopefully y'all know about the Newton line here, but these were updated last year, I believe, maybe 2 years ago. And we have 3 different versions. The Newton Fast, and then the Newton Easy Fit. Depends on your budget, depends on the features you want. Starting from the left here, the basic Newton, you're coming in just under $100 MSRP if you just go on treestuff.com. And the top part is yellow and the bottom part is black, so you're not putting it on upside down. While that sounds a little ridiculous, it does happen. So Petzl tries to make that really easy to know what side's up. So that's a nice feature with the regular Newton, but it's just basic. It's not super comfortable or anything. It just covers your bases, so you're in compliance with your body harness there. The middle portion, the Newton Fast, this is getting more comfortable and a lot easier to put on. So you have on the bottom, you have these quick buckles. These are the same buckles that are on the Sequoia. And so it's a little triple action in and off. You don't have to step through. You can just put it on like a vest and connect everything while standing on your feet. And it has a bit of padding on the upper part there. So it's a really nice middle option to be comfortable when you're working in the bucket. And then the highest end is the Newton Easy Fit. You have the same padding up front. You also have padding on your legs, which is nice. You have the quick buckles, and you have these really big pockets here. Those pockets are quite big. It's bigger than like a big iPhone, not the mini versions, but the max versions, I think they're called. That would totally fit in there. Put your cigarettes in there, put a little snack in there. Big 2 pockets, and a nice option there to be in compliance. They all have the dorsal D ring to connect into, but you also have these 2 yellow rings in the front on all 3 versions. When you connect both of those together, you can use that as a connection point. So if I needed to go out into the tree from the bucket, I could connect my zigzag into there. It's not gonna be super comfortable because it's sternal, but I could use those together and go make 1 cut or so out of the bucket. An alternative body harness would be the Aveo here. So this is a totally different kind of harness here. It's good for fall arrest with your dorsal D. You can be in work positioning. You have these side D rings here as well. So you could use this to tree climb, absolutely. You can be suspension in this. We have a sternal D ring and a ventral D ring as well. So if I knew I had to climb out of the bucket, this would be the harness that I would pick because I could connect in ventrally there and be pretty ergonomic. It's not a bridge. I don't have that range of movement. I know there are 1 or 2 harnesses on the market that have a bridge integrated into the full body, but this is Petzl versions here. Really nice harness, wide back pad, quite comfortable, and a solid option if you know you're going in and out of the bucket quite a lot. Easy to put on, easy to put off. Your quick buckles down there as well. So we covered the anchors, we covered the body harnesses, and now we'll get into connectors here. So Petzl's line of connectors, as far as it relates to fall in a bucket truck, is the Absorbica line. So we have 3 different Absorbicas, and these versions come without carabiners. So again, you need to select the right carabiner, your BMD that has that 3,600 pound gate strength, or some other options that we'll talk about. But the 3 versions of the Absorbica, we have the Absorbica I-80. What is 80 centimeters, right? That's 31.5 inches. That's 2.6 feet. That's pretty short. So depending on how tall you are, that could actually be fall restraint. You might not be able to get out of the bucket. So I actually don't recommend the 80 centimeter one for bucket truck work because it does limit you. You don't have a great range of motion when you need to cut. Instead, the Absorbica I Flex 150, that's almost 60 inches. That's almost 5 feet without connectors, right? So you put connectors on there, you're getting 5.5 feet-ish or so, and you're going to have a pretty solid range of motion. These are all ANSI Z359 compliant when used with the appropriate connector and captive there. So that's a good option. The Flex is nice because it does scrunch together when not extended. So you're not tripping over it. It keeps it pretty compact. But if you do need to lean out, it will expand like an accordion. The Absorbica Vario is a really cool, pretty unique option. Not much else on the market like the Vario. It is adjustable. from 100 centimeters to 150 centimeters, 3.5-ish feet to 5-ish feet there. So that's a nice option and under $100. So solid price point on that Vario as well. It's adjustable, like I said. So there's this buckle that you can quite easily extend the length of it, and you can pretty easily with 2 hands shorten it as well. So you can switch between fall restraint and fall protection, which gives you options when you're in the bucket, or if you're moving the bucket, say. You can also adjust it for different people's heights. So if I have somebody on the crew who's like a giant, who's 6'10" or something like that, I can extend it all the way. And then if I have somebody who's on the shorter side, say 5'2", 5'3", maybe 5 foot, I can shorten it and therefore reduce my fall factor. Not going to talk about fall factors here, but you always want to limit the distance that you could free fall. And so the Absorbica Vario allows you to do that, which is pretty cool. And then it has a little sleeve to keep everything organized in there. The Absorbicas have some interesting technology in them. Our ratings are, if you're a user, for 110 pounds to 310 pounds, that's the weight range that's allowable under the ANSI standard and Petzl's specifications in there. An interesting maximum arrest force for the Absorbicas, it's 6 kilonewtons for Petzl's Absorbicas, which is less than what OSHA in ANSI says of 8 kilonewtons. But a good thing about Petzl being a global company, we have these European standards that are sometimes more stringent than the American standards. So instead of potentially two more kilonewtons, 500-ish pounds of force on my body, if I'm using a Petzl Absorbica, my max is going to be 6 kilonewtons. It's not going to be 8. So yeah, less force on your body, a good thing. It's easy to inspect. We have stitches in the pouching, which you can easily open up and inspect. So that's nice for your yearly inspections, if not more often. And then it has a progressive tearing system in it as well. So the stitches inside that pack only deploy as much as needed, depending on the amount of force I put onto the system, which there are 3 levels, which is this graph that I'm showing here. So if I take a small fall and I'm a small person, I'm not putting a crazy amount of force on my body. I'm only putting as much as needed on my body. So that progressive tearing system is quite unique for Petzl and gives you a soft catch, if that makes sense to you. Going back to carabiners with that 3,600-pound gate strength, we talked about the BMD. That's our aluminum version. That came out a few years ago. It's a lightweight carabiner that is in compliance for any time you need to use 3,600-pound gate there. We have the Oxen and the Vulcan, which are steel carabiners. So it's going to be a lot heavier. Some people like the weight. Some people don't like the weight. All up to you. The Vulcan is a big carabiner. It's it's pretty sizable. So that's a big version as well. Say you want a couple more inches on your system for whatever reason, the Vulcan is our biggest carabiner and strongest as well. For ANSI compliance, you do have to have the captive. So this captive goes on almost every Petzl carabiner, and it puts it inside the carabiner as to not rotate, allow the carabiner to rotate. So sometimes you'll see somebody have a captive on their carabiner that connects to their harness, or maybe even their chicane, that doesn't allow the carabiner to rotate. So it's a really nice accessory, but it is mandated for ANSI compliance to not have that carabiner rotating. So if you have a BMD already on your Absorbica for your bucket truck kit, great. But if you don't have a captive, again, technically you're not going to be in ANSI compliance there. So some solutions. Petzl's coming out with kits this year, which I'm really psyched about. Instead of having to remember, okay, I need a BMD, I need a captive, I need an Absorbica, I need a Newton, and that's a lot of different SKUs to order. Later this year, we'll see when we launch them. Tree Stuff will definitely give you an announcement, but we're going to launch these kits sometime this year, so you can just order one SKU. Make it really easy for you so you know you're in compliance there. We got options for what type of harness and what type of lanyard as well. And it comes in a little bucket. So here are the options. We have 5 different options for the full kit, and it depends on which harness you're choosing. So if you're choosing a normal Newton, the most basic version, you're going to get the Absorbica I-150. That's going to already come pre-assembled with the BMDs and the captives on that Absorbica. And then that's all going to be in a bucket. So I just have my bucket. Here's my fall protection kit. Keep it with the bucket. All good. The higher end version is with the Newton Easy Fit and the Absorbica Vario there. Again, kitted, assembled with the BMDs and captives. And the SKU that you would order would depend on what harness size. So Newton size 1, Newton size 2, Easy Fit 0, 1, 2. All that good stuff. A quick note on the bucket. We launched these last year. We updated our buckets. It's a really nice rope bag. I know there are a lot of rope bags there on the market, but some interesting things for Petzl is 3 different colors. The black is pretty dope. 3 different sizes, 15 liters, 30 liters, 45 liters. So what does that mean? In 11 millimeter ropes, that's 150 feet, 360 feet, 607 feet. So I know 11 millimeters is a bit on the skinny side. So massage those numbers a little bit if you're climbing with 11.6, 11.7, or even a ½ inch there. But you can see this little roll top closure, which is quite nice. It does lock everything in. I'm not going to say weatherproof because it's not. I would not throw this in a river, but it's a really nice TPU material that is quite weather resistant, water resistant. So nice bucket there. You got a little zipper pocket on the side. You have a clear area there. So if I want to label what that is, you could say, bucket truck kit. I can slide a little card into there that says what it is there. Some padded handles. And on the larger version, you have some padded backpack straps as well, which is nice and convenient. So blew through that, a lot of fall protection stuff in that PowerPoint. Hopefully you had a little intro into what OSHA says, ANSI says in the Petzl solutions out there. If you need a refresh on your bucket truck kit, I know they get used a lot, but it's not a high turnover item. So make sure you inspect that equipment. If it's old or needs to be replaced, or you just want to upgrade to a nicer options like we saw here, go to treestuff.com. They have all the options out there. Get a nice new bucket truck kit. Stay safe out there. And thanks for joining the webinar, everybody.